studies ago, which where we went from Noah to Abram. And so on this study, I'm just going to go from Abram and to how he becomes Abraham. And so Abraham, let's get into it. Right now, technically where we are in the study, his name is still Abram, but he will become known as Abraham. And I want to talk about, what does Abraham mean? Remember, we're talking about the importance of names, especially the importance of a name in Hebrew and what it reveals about somebody, because there are no mistakes and there's no accidents and there's no coincidences by God. So if we break it down from right to left, we have Aleph, Bet, Resh, He, Mem, which is Abraham, which Aleph means God. The next letter would mean house or temple. Remember on the last Bible study, we learned that, do you not know it, that you yourselves are the temple of God, or the house, the dwelling place of God, the body. So God's house or temple, the head or the highest person will behold or will be revealed through the water. Well, what does that mean? Well, God's highest head, God's temple, highest person, will be revealed through the water. Well, remember, we came from Noah, where the flood was. And what became revealed through the water, right, was that Noah was the highest person of the temple of God at that time. And it was revealed that he was that through the water. And this is meaning in a different way, though, because he was also, Abraham comes from the lineage of Noah. And he too was revealed, obviously, through the water, but it means something a little deeper. The last letter of Abraham's name is a mem, which is the letter right? So there's two forms of mem. There is that form, which is the final form. You see, it's closed. And then when it's not at the end of a word, it's open, like that. I'll do it one more time. Closed mem, open mem, which is interesting because it's one of the very few letters that has a final form and a regular form of the letter. But if it means water, we're literally looking at it meaning open water, closed water, just like the flood. But it means something a little more deeper than that too when you're dealing with Abraham, because the letter mem also represents the number 40. So there was 40 days of rain, constant rain for the flood. There's also 40 full weeks of a woman's pregnancy. And that's what we're focusing on in the meaning of Abraham's name, is that the baby swims in the water that's in the womb for 40 weeks. And when the water breaks, or when the water is open, the baby comes out after 40. And so what we're really saying here in Abraham's name is that God's house head, or the leader of God's temple, will be revealed through the birth of Abraham, through Abraham's lineage, basically. And it talks more about that in the New Testament in Matthew chapter 1 through 17. You can find the lineage from Abraham to Jesus. And so let's get into Genesis 12. Is pretty much, we left off last time at Genesis 11, when God's telling Abraham, leave your country and your father's household and the place that you're from, and go to a land that I will show you. So then it says, and Abram took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all of the substance that they gathered, and the souls that they got in Haran, and they went forth to go into the land of Canaan. It says that the Lord appeared unto Abram and said, unto your seed I will give this land. And he built there an altar unto the Lord, who appeared unto him. So let's remember that. The Lord appeared to Abraham. In verse 8, it says that he removed from there unto the mountain on the east of Bethel, and pitched his tent, having Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. And he builded there an altar unto the Lord and called upon the name of the Lord. So here we have two altars being built because now he's really feeling his walk with God. He left Ur and he went to Haran, and now he's leaving Haran, and he's not going to settle in one of the cities. It says he settled in a place that's right in between two cities. So he's really feeling his walk with God to be the provider for him. And it says that he called upon the name of the Lord, and that Lord appeared to him. Well, what's the name of the Lord? The name of the Lord in Hebrew is, that you could debate about how to pronounce it, but Yahweh or Yahweh or a multitude of different pronunciations. But how it's written from right to left is Yod He Vav He. Okay, Yod He Vav He. And when we break that down, what does that mean? What is the name of the Lord revealing to us? It is that the hand that beholds the nail reveals. And mind you, the ancient symbol for He, which is the second and last letter of the name there, is a picture of a man doing this. Behold, and he's showing you his palms, almost like he's getting ready to be crucified, right? Yeah, the hand that beholds the nail reveals. That's God's name. That's pretty amazing. And they put God on the cross, didn't they? And so it says that he appeared to Abram and starts giving him instructions. So let's do a little geography real quick and a little history. At the end of our last study from Noah to Abram, he was telling him to leave Ur. And so this is an ancient site of Ur, an archaeological site of ancient Ur. As you could see, they were not super developed, but they were not underdeveloped either, because off in the back there, you can see this giant tower thing. It's pretty impressive, actually. But that's the ancient site of Ur. And whenever they dug up the royal burial grounds for the royals of Ur, they found all kind of awesome stuff. They found a queen's headdress. They found some other clothing. They found that golden calf or that golden bull. Yeah, we've been over that in these Bible studies already. But they found the golden bull on that lyre, which a lyre is like a harp. And they found that awesome bowl. And so we have Abram leaving Ur to go up to Haran. And this is ancient Haran. I think this is a rebuild of the site. They rebuilt this like maybe 200 years ago. But there was an archaeological dig that they found that this is how they've always built in Haran. So it's stayed true to its culture and to its traditional building style. And so what we just went over was that he left Haran and he took all of the things that he had accumulated in Haran, including all of his indentured servants, and that he took off again. And now he's down here in between Bethel and Ai. Ai is not very impressive archaeologically. It looks like trash, which is kind of hilarious because the Romanized word of Ai is like Hea, which literally means rubble, a place of rubble. So it probably didn't look that great even when it was built up. Probably just a bunch of stones. They were trying to build like the other civilizations and probably just weren't good at it. Don't quote me on that. So then it says that he went to Egypt. We'll get to some more of that in a second. But then he comes into Egypt. And I put Memphis there instead of Egypt because Memphis is the city where the royals are commonly known to have lived. And this is a site of ancient Memphis. And this is a rendering of what it would have looked like in its prime. But when Sarai goes with Abram, remember Sarai is Abram's wife. When they go into Egypt, Abraham knows that his wife is so beautiful, they might kill him and steal her. So he hatches this plan that he says to her, tell them you're my sister so that they'll treat me good. I'll be like the hot girl's brother, you know, and they'll treat me cool. And so they do that, but the Pharaoh ends up liking her. She's so beautiful, and he makes her his wife. But Sarai gives the Pharaoh a disease, and which would suggest that maybe she had a condition, or maybe she had an STD of some type. It doesn't state that, but it does say she gave him a disease, and he gets really mad at Abram and has them escorted out of all of Egypt. Like, he doesn't just tell them to leave, he has them taken out by like police escort, basically, like, get out of my country. And this is what Memphis probably would have looked like, completely built up. I'm not sure if it was this advanced or built up by the time Abram got there, but this is what that city was looking like. So there's the 2 altars that he built that we read about in Genesis 12. Then the Bible says that he went back to where he came from, where he built that altar in between Bethel and Ai. And then he gets tired of that spot, and he goes to pitch his tent in Mamre. Now, he builds an altar there under the terebinths. The terebinths of Mamre are this giant grove of oak trees. And this is really important, because there's a lot of people who think that the terebinths actually represent teachers. That's just kind of like not understanding the whole situation. These trees are so old. These trees are so big, and there's a whole grove of them. And just the way that the oak tree grows, in a way, it inspires the spirit of learning as a human being into you, because you realize how not old you are, and you realize you probably ain't going to make it as old as this tree is. And so in a way, it has the ability to kind of teach you that humbleness, right? So in a way, there is a teacher there. And not to mention, the judges used to hang out under trees. And so we'll get to that later in a Bible study. But the trees of Mamre, or the terebinths, are these giant trees. There's a giant grove of them. And so Abram comes out of Ur into Haran, leaves there, makes his way all the way to Egypt. His wife gives the Pharaoh a disease. They get kicked out. And so he just goes to pitch his tent under these oak trees. And in Genesis 13, it says, the God tells Abram, I will make your seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall your seed also be numbered. Arise and walk through the land in the length of it and in the breadth of it. For you I will give it. So we literally have the formula for area, length times width. We see that God is giving him a formula. And in that formula, he's telling him to go walk around this place. Check it out, because I'm giving it to you. So he's literally telling him, do some reconnaissance, do your recon, check this place out. It's going to be yours. And Abram moved his tent and came to dwell by the terebinths of Mamre, which are in Hebron, and built there an altar unto the Lord. And that's those trees that we just looked at in that photograph. There's a 4th altar, but we'll get to that a little later. That's the altar of mystery. So Genesis 14, after he's been traveling around a little while, the situation politically in the area gets really hot, and a bunch of kings start to go after each other's throat, and they all start to go to war. So it says the king of Sodom went out to meet him after his return from the slaughter of Chedorlaomer. And the kings that were with him at the valley of Shaveh, which is the same as the valley of, or the king's valley, excuse me. And Melchizedek, the king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and he was the priest of the God Most High. So he's not the priest of Chemosh. He's not the priest of Baal. He's not the priest of, oh, it's the universe talking to me. No, no, no. He's the priest of the God Most High, of Yahweh, of Yod-He Vav-He. And he blesses Abram and says, "Blessed be Abram, the God of the Most High, the maker of the heaven and the earth." We get into 15 and it says, God is speaking to Abram again. And he said unto Abram, "Know for sure that your seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and that they shall serve them and shall afflict them for 400 years. There's a lot to kind of get into about that subject, but for the sake of this Bible study, I'm just going to keep it at face value. And what he's talking about is obviously in the future, because Abram doesn't have any descendants yet. And so what he's telling him is your seed, your descendants, are going to serve or be slaves in a land that isn't their land for 400 years. And you need to know that for sure. And what are they talking about? Well, as far as we know from the scripture, they're talking about the land of Egypt, where the Hebrews got moved down into and they were forced to serve. And the Bible records it as 400 years. Some people debate that. They can shrink those years. Some people extend those years. That's mathematics for you to do on your own time from the correct translations. We're not going to go into that here. So, but he tells him, you need to know for sure that your people are going to be slaves in a land that's not theirs. Then he says, but in that day, the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, but unto your seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates. So remember that the formula we were talking about, the formula of area, length times width. He said, walk in the length and the breadth of the land and check it out. Do some reconnaissance because I'm going to give it to you. Well, from the great river of Egypt, which is the Nile, to the great river of the Euphrates, that's that whole section right there. Or if we're going based on the path that Abram's faith has taken him on, we're actually talking about this area, which is even bigger, and that's even greater. Probably could come down south a little more if we're being honest. And so God is confirming to him that your people are going to be slaves in a land that's not theirs for around 400 years. But don't worry about that, because don't forget the promise I made you that I'm going to give your people all of this. It's going to be theirs. And that your seed will be numbered like the dust of the earth. Sarai is barren. So what are we talking about? So they've been doing all this traveling, and Abram has his wife Sarai with him the whole time. And she hasn't had a baby, and she became the Pharaoh's wife. She didn't get pregnant by the Pharaoh. She actually gave him a disease. That's the key indicator of why she's probably barren. There's something really going on with her. Poor thing has a condition that's preventing her from being fertile. So she can't have a baby. But that's his wife. So how is he going to have seeds that are numbered like the dust of the earth to inherit this giant piece of land that God, who appeared to him, has told him about? Well, when they were in Egypt, they acquired more stuff, because remember, they thought Abram was Sarai's brother. So they're giving him all kind of deals, man. They're giving him deals on this, deals on that, deals on indentured servants. And he came across an indentured servant named Hagar, and he purchased her, and now she's a part of his household. And so Sarai realizes that she's barren, can't have a baby. But she believes what Abram has told her about his whole faithful experience with God and why they've been traveling from country to country and where they've been going. So she says, well, we gotta do something. So I'm going to give my servant Hagar to you, and you guys can have this family. She can have children for me since I'm the wife. She'll have the kids, and I'll raise them, and we can all be a family. And I guess that's the seeds that God is talking about. So the Bible says in Genesis 16, and the angel of the Lord found her by a fountain of water in the wilderness, by the fountain on the way to Shur. And the angel of the Lord said to her, meaning Hagar, return to your mistress and submit yourself under her hands. And the angel of the Lord said to her, I will greatly multiply your seed, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, behold, thou art with a child, and you shall bear a son, and you shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord has heard your affliction. Meaning, when Hagar got pregnant, and when they realized Hagar could probably be pregnant, or, you know, I got a 10-minute limit. I don't know how that's happening. So anyway, if this drops us off in 10 minutes, just hop back on and I'll continue. So basically, whenever Sarai realizes that Hagar and Abraham have to have a relationship in order to have a child, and of course, Abraham's probably very fond of that interaction, they kind of start to get jealous of one another. And so Hagar becomes afflicted because she knows she's basically, I hate to say it like this, but she's kind of the side chick. And she's being used in a way that slaves have been known to be used for, and it's very unfortunate. But the angel of the Lord appeared to her and says, don't worry about it. We're going to make sure that your seed is blessed as well. So in Genesis 17, this is where it happens. God gets a hold of Abraham's heart and mind and tells him that Sarah's name, or Sarai's name, is not going to be Sarai. Her name is now going to be called Sarah. And there's a reason for the letter changing and the name changing, because that means there's a meaning change, right? A slight meaning change. So Genesis 17 says, neither shall your name anymore be called Abram, but thy name shall be Abraham. For the father of a multitude of nations have I made you, and I will make thee exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations out of you, and kings will come out of you. So Abraham being old, and Sarah having been barren her whole life, a long time has passed. He's already had his son Ishmael. They get approached by 3 men at their tent, who give them a word about a baby that Sarah is going to have. And the Bible accounts that Sarah can hear them speaking to Abraham from inside the tent, and she starts to laugh. And they basically ask her, oh, you know, you think that's funny? You think prophecy is funny? And then he starts to laugh, you know, like, you know, he can't believe it. He's an old man, and this lady has been barren her whole life. And these guys start to walk and prophesy and to tell them what the Lord is saying. And so they laugh about a son being born to them. And that's Isaac. And Isaac's name literally means laughter. We're not going to break his name all the way down, but it means laughter, because they told him, yeah, he's going to be called Isaac. Since you guys want to laugh, you know, since you want to laugh about this, go ahead, call him Isaac. So if you remember, whenever we were in the last 2 studies ago, we said that we went from Noah all the way to Abram, and Abram's nephew was called Lot. Well, Lot has been with Abram this whole time, traveling around, until they separated, because Abram's herd and his cattle and all of his belongings were so great being put up next to Lot, and his cattle and his stuff was so great, it was just too much for this one piece of land. You know the old adage, this place ain't big enough for the both of us. And there was no tension, there's no beef, but they decided to go opposite ways. And Lot ends up living in this place called Sodom and Gomorrah. And you can do your own reading. Remember, this is just an overview. But in Genesis 19, it says that Abram looked out towards Sodom and Gomorrah one day, and toward all the land of the plain, and he behold, and lo, the smoke of the land went up as the smoke of a furnace. Because there was great sin in Sodom and Gomorrah. And as the Bible accounts it, a fire from the sky destroyed the whole city. Well, turns out there's this really amazing place that they have identified as one of the possible sites of Sodom and Gomorrah. And it's filled with ashes. Literally everything that you're looking at right there is ash on top of rock. If you've ever seen Petra, the great city of Petra, how they carved that whole place into this face of the mountain, well, that's what would have been here too, except this place is literally covered in ashes, and there's brimstone rocks, sulfur brimstone rocks embedded everywhere, all over this site, all over the place. Meaning brimstone, sulfur, in case you don't know, when it falls from the sky, is literally fire from the sky. It's like a bunch of missiles. And if there is any off-gassing or any chemicals in that rock that has a flash point higher than a couple hundred degrees, the whole place will go up like a crazy laboratory catching on fire. The whole place will go completely in fire. That's what the Bible said happened to Sodom and Gomorrah. And this is one of the sites they've studied. And here you can even see from this site, on the bottom of this picture where about the guy's head height, you can see these horizontal lines that are all going straight. Now that's normal formation of time, but that swimming of that rock formation up there, that happened from thermal ionization of extreme heat of 6,000 degrees of constant burning, which proves that this area did burn at one point. So this site is actually very indicative of where and what happened to Sodom and Gomorrah. I have a feeling it's going to bump me off here in a minute. When it does, just come back and I'll have to figure, I'll probably start doing this on a different platform because I don't like being kicked off in the middle of my sharing. So back to the mystery altar. Abram was a altar building guy. He loved to build altars to the Lord to show that he was really a man of faith. He left his country. He went into a place he didn't know. Then he just quit going to cities altogether and started pitching his tent out in the wilderness because he's on this walk with God. And, you know, you can't hear God around all that noise. And so he feels in his heart that God is commanding him to sacrifice his son from Sarah, Isaac, the one that he waited on all this time. And he doesn't understand it, but he is a man of faith. And so he goes up to the mountain and he says, Genesis 22:8, and Abraham said to his son Isaac, God himself will provide the lamb for a burnt offering, my son. So they both went up together, up to Mount Moriah. And he gets up there and he ties his son up and he gets ready to sacrifice him. And the Bible says that the angel of the Lord stops him and says, you know, do not lay your hand upon that lad, neither do you anything unto him. For now I know that you are a God-fearing man, seeing that you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. You are willing to do this. So Abraham, and remember, we just get this translation in English. This has been through quite a few translations. I would assume that there was also quite a bit of misunderstanding about what God was revealing to Abraham, because it's not your son that gets sacrificed here, Abraham. And I'm pretty sure that's what the angel of the Lord had to command to him and tell him, you're misunderstanding something here, bub. That's not what happens. That the Son of God is the one that's going to be on that cross. You know, Yod He Vav He, the one that appeared to you, the name of the Lord, the hand that beholds the nail, behold, will reveal. So don't do anything to your son. And this is Mount Moriah today. It's still one of the most important places on earth. This is Mount Moriah. You got the Dome of the Rock over there. And this is where some of the most important things have happened in human history, not just biblical history, but human history. You have the ascension of Jesus. You have the crucifixion on Golgotha Hill, which is in the Moriah area. You have the building of Solomon's temple, which happens here too. So this is